Hello, I'm Sarah Nahar, currently a PhD student in Religion and Environmental Studies in Syracuse, which is traditional Haudenosaunee land. I was born here in the Great Lakes watershed, the descendant of willing and unwilling settlers. And what I mean by that is that I am ethnically mixed between those Europeans who were given privilege when they arrived to North America and those West Africans who were not and did not come here by their own volition. Yet, I'm also not indigenous to this place. So I offer these thoughts with humility and deference to the people native to this landmass. And I hope this session will assist you in being proactive in advocating for and being a part of climate solutions. So in order to do this, it is important to be led by those most impacted by the ongoing climate crisis. On Turtle Island, those most impacted by climate change are groups also impacted by the systemic forces of racism, colonization, corporate capitalism, and militarism. Stated more frankly, that is, indigenous people everywhere, both across the global south and those displaced into the global north, and those whose societies around the world have been disrupted by industrialized war and resource extraction. Those are impacted peoples, and we need to follow their leadership as we address the climate crisis. And impacted people are speaking out everywhere. There are newsletters, press conferences, calls to action, and much more regarding our concerns for biodiversity, for an end to war, and for land sovereignty. Furthermore, impacted groups often approach climate change issues via public health concerns, because the lack of health in a community can come from an environment destroyed by colonization. And I'm going to focus on a particular health aspect that affects every one of us, but it's not always talked about because it's not considered polite. I'm going to talk about poop and pee. That is, feces and urine. We have to talk about our crap in order to do climate justice work. But with so many issues demanding our attention these days, what is significant about sanitation and why should it stir our hearts? Well, 40% of the world's population, right now that's 2.5 billion people, don't have access to dignified sanitation. Like the lack of access to potable water, the inability to have safe, clean place to eliminate has a huge impact on how people, especially women, must structure their day. Unprocessed poop carries deadly bacteria. The number of people who die annually from poor sanitation exceeds that of those killed in war, bombings, and natural disasters combined. And it's the area of sanitation, it's one place that's neglected, but a place that I think where the interlocking systems of oppression is both unseen and routine. For example, the African American community living near Mobile, Alabama, has had raw sewage running in their yards for decades. They have called over and over to the state to pay attention to the fact that normal sewage and septic systems do not work in their natural environment and soils, calling on them to install systems that do work, systems that conserve water, and systems that can reintegrate their refuse effectively. But the responsible state associations of Alabama, formed during a time of segregation, have been extremely slow to respond, and at times denying that there are any issues at all. The community and their allies have collected medical data, as many in the community have reported hookworm. This is a tropical disease that's a major public health concern. And supposedly eradicated last century, hookworm can only resurface in people if their drinking water has been contaminated by feces. Yet, instead of an environmentally sensitive response that recognizes how racism and classism have sidelined this community, that community is fined for not having the proper equipment and for the raw sewage in their yards. So here's an example of how racial and class discrimination is playing a role in a state's lack of responsiveness, which blocks a community's desire to protect themselves from waterborne illness and to protect their natural environment from spreading toxicity. You can learn more about this particular situation in Catherine Coleman Flower's book, Waste, America's Dirty Secret. So, as you think about climate change and the catastrophes it brings, consider how it's already impacting people who are more vulnerable than you. Beyond Alabama, there have been struggles over the placement of sewage facilities in the U.S. So many of them have been placed in areas where people of color live and far away from where white people live. The U.S. system of seeing our African American, Latino, South and Southeast Asian, and indigenous communities as disposable allows policies to go through that put our disposables, both poop and chemicals, right in their backyard. This results, among other things, in greater rates of asthma and cancer, as particulates in the air lower its quality. The fact that those who are least responsible for this massive scale climate change we face will be the most impacted is what the United Nations has called the protection gap. As you process your emotions around climate change and the catastrophes coming with it, it can be a lot to think about. So I'd invite you to use the moment when you are on the toilet daily to think about it. The toilet is a place, after all, where our mundane actions contribute to the crisis. Yet there's not currently a simple way to stop our contributions. Toilets are the household appliance that consume the most water. Perhaps practicing mellow yellow, brown down. Another way of saying that is, if it's yellow, let it mellow. If it's brown, flush it down. Break the taboo about toilet practices. When you visit the homes of others, ask them about what their toilet protocol is, rather than just assuming that you should flush the fresh water down after every use. And once you get off the toilet, ask, where are my poop and pee going? If you don't know, try to find out. Get together with a few others and ask your local officials how they are handling this messy question. Are your nutrients poisoning a river, or are they being reintegrated into soil to grow orchard fruits, for example? Because the flush toilet with sewer piping is so good at its work of separating us from pathogens, some want to solve this global crisis by providing freshwater flush toilets for all. Dignified sanitation is indeed essential for a healthy life. However, holding up the European-style freshwater flush system as the savior is not the solution. That system is already barely sustainable here in the global north, and exporting it all around the world is not exactly realistic. It relies on immense physical infrastructure and abundant water. This is a backwards-looking solution. People like Soil Haiti, Mosan Guatemala, and Sanergy Kenya are forward-looking leaders in waterless toilet technology that provides jobs, breaks taboos, and creates public health. Funding these organizations and learning from them are ways to participate in environmental regeneration efforts that are led by the most impacted. Since they are led by people on the margins, the solutions that they come up with will help close the protection gap and can influence how our future will look. Beyond toilets, integrating an anti-racist and decolonial analysis throughout any sustainability work you do will allow for climate justice solutions to emerge. And that means finding solutions that are adaptable and that work for everyone, not just those on the comfortable side of the protection gap. Christian discipleship, after all, is about dealing with our crap, metaphorically anyway, and not pushing it onto someone else. So Christians have the discipleship opportunity to be leaders in this area, dealing with our crap literally. We can support efforts to make sure everyone has dignified sanitation and systems that work in their environment, and we can adjust our own society's reliance on freshwater flushing. As we transition to systems that safely reintegrate what comes out of our bodies into the soil, we can translate the golden rule into our water systems, doing unto those downstream as we would have those upstream do to us.